in the heart of a gleaming skyscraper that pierced the night sky of downtown Chicago, where the city's elite brokered deals worth fortunes, a solitary figure moved through the shadows. It was well past midnight, and the building's corridors, usually buzzing with the hum of ambition during the day, now echoed with an unnatural silence. Alexander Harrington, a self-made millionaire whose empire spanned real estate and tech, had returned to his penthouse office unexpectedly. Insomnia gnawed at him, a remnant of his relentless drive that had built his wealth from nothing, or so he liked to believe. As he strode down the dimly lit hallway, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor, a faint flicker caught his eye. It came from the executive lounge, a room reserved for board meetings and high-stakes negotiations. The lights were off, but through the glass door he saw a subtle glow, like a phone flashlight dancing erratically. His pulse quickened. Burglary? Espionage? In his world, trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. He paused, his hand hovering over his phone to call security, but curiosity overrode caution. Quietly, he pushed the door open, the hinge creaking, like a warning. There, huddled in the corner under a massive oak table, was a woman. Her dark skin blended with the shadows, her uniform, a simple cleaner's jumpsuit, wrinkled from hours of labor. Books and notebooks sprawled around her, illuminated by the weak beam of her phone. She was studying, her brow furrowed in concentration. Oblivious to the world, Alexander froze. Why here? Why in the dark? Suspicion flared in his chest, tinted by the unspoken biases he carried from a life of privilege. Was this theft disguised as diligence, or something more insidious? He stepped closer, his shadow falling over her like an accusation, and in that moment, the air thickened with unspoken tension. What he would do next could shatter a life, or redefine his own. The woman was named Maya Thompson, a 28-year-old single mother who had immigrated from Jamaica 5 years earlier, chasing the American dream that seemed perpetually out of reach. By day, she scrubbed floors and emptied trash bins in Harrington's towering headquarters, her hands calloused from the work that paid just enough to keep her and her young son housed in a cramped apartment on the city's outskirts. But her true fire burned at night. After her shifts ended, when the building emptied, Maya would slip into unused rooms, using the faint light from her phone to pore over textbooks on business law and entrepreneurship. She dreamed of earning a degree, starting her own cleaning service empire, and breaking the cycle of poverty that had trapped her family for generations. Studying in the dark wasn't a choice born of whimsy. It was necessity. The office's electricity was monitored, and she couldn't risk drawing attention, or worse, accusations of tampering. In her world, being black and poor meant every action was scrutinized, every motive questioned. She had faced it before, suspicious glances from colleagues, extra checks from security, the subtle barriers that whispered she didn't belong. Yet, her determination was unyielding, fueled by memories of her grandmother's stories of resilience amid colonial hardships. Each page turned was a step toward freedom, a quiet rebellion against the invisibility forced upon her. Alexander Harrington, on the other hand, embodied the pinnacle of success. At 55, he oversaw a company valued at over $500 million, his face gracing business magazines as a paragon of the bootstrap myth. But beneath the veneer lay a man hardened by his own climb, from a working-class white family in the Midwest, where he had clawed his way up through sheer grit. Or so the narrative went. In truth, doors had opened for him that remained locked for others, privileges he rarely acknowledged. Racial biases simmered subtly in his decisions, the diverse hires that never quite made it to executive levels, the offhand comments about urban challenges. Returning to the office that night, he had been mulling over a merger, his mind a whirlwind, of numbers and strategies. Spotting Maya ignited something primal, a mix of protectiveness over his domain and an ingrained wariness toward those who didn't fit his mold. As he approached, the scene unfolded like a puzzle begging to be solved. Why risk her job for this? Was there more to her story, or was it a clever ruse? The curiosity gnawed at him, pulling him deeper into the encounter that would force him to confront the shadows in his own heart. The moment stretched taut as Alexander loomed over Maya, his presence finally registering in her periphery. She startled, her books scattering like secrets exposed, her heart pounding with the fear that had become her constant companion. In that instant, the weight of her vulnerability crashed down, the fear of losing everything in a system stacked against her. Alexander's mind raced with assumptions. Why sneak around? What if she was photocopying confidential documents under the guise of studying? His biases, nurtured by years of media portrayals and isolated privilege, painted her as a potential threat rather than a striving soul. He didn't speak at first, but his stance, arms crossed, eyes narrowed, conveyed accusation. Maya gathered her things hastily, her movements jerky, aware that in the eyes of power, her blackness amplified every perceived fault. She thought of the injustices that had led her here, the visa struggles, the low-wage jobs where supervisors overlooked her for promotions, favoring those who looked like them. Once, at a previous job, she had been falsely accused of stealing supplies, her word dismissed against a white co-worker's. The memory fueled her resolve, but now, facing this titan of industry, doubt crept in. Would he call the police? Fire her on the spot? The tension coiled tighter, the air heavy with unspoken power dynamics. As minutes ticked by, Alexander's initial anger simmered into confusion. He noticed the titles of her books, advanced economics, legal ethics, subjects that mirrored his own early studies. Yet the racial divide loomed large. He recalled boardroom discussions where diversity was a checkbox, not a commitment, and how his company had faced quiet lawsuits over discriminatory practices. Maya's presence challenged, that complacency stirring unease. He paced the room, his shadow eclipsing her light, while she remained frozen, her dreams teetering on the edge of ruin. The stakes escalated as memories flooded him. He thought of his youth, working odd jobs to fund college, but conveniently forgot the scholarships and networks that eased his path, opportunities often denied to people like Maya due to systemic barriers. Her story, pieced together in his mind from the scattered notes, revealed layers of injustice, redlining that kept her family in underfunded schools, workplace microaggressions that eroded her confidence. The emotional weight pressed on both, the fear in her eyes mirroring the guilt beginning to dawn in his. Tension peaked as he reached for his phone, the decision hanging like a blade, ready to sever or to heal. In the charged silence of the lounge, Alexander's hand trembled slightly on his phone, the screen's glow casting harsh lines on his face. The room felt smaller, the darkness amplifying every breath, every shift in posture. Maya's mind whirled with dread. She envisioned the security guards arriving, their judgmental stares, the inevitable escalation where her innocence would be, questioned simply because of her skin color. This was the pinnacle of her fears, the moment where racial prejudice could crush her aspirations underfoot. But as Alexander hesitated, a flicker of recognition pierced his suspicion. Staring at the worn textbooks, he was transported back to his own nights of clandestine study in a dingy garage, hiding from a father who dismissed education as a fool's errand. The parallel struck him like a thunderbolt. Maya's determination echoed his own, yet hers was burdened by obstacles he had never faced, barriers erected by the very society that elevated him. Shame washed over him, hot and unrelenting as he confronted the ugly truth of his biases. How many times had he overlooked talent in his company because it didn't come in a familiar package? The injustice she represented wasn't abstract. It was alive, breathing, right before him. The intensity built as he lowered the phone, his posture softening for the first time. Instead of accusation, a wave of empathy surged, dismantling the walls he had built. He saw not an intruder, but a mirror of his younger self, fighting against odds magnified by racism. In that climactic shift, he made his choice, not to destroy, but to uplift. Extending a metaphorical olive branch through his actions, he gestured toward the books, signaling understanding. The drama crested as he pulled out a chair, sitting across from her in the dim light, the power dynamic inverting. No longer the accuser, he became the ally, vowing silently to right the wrongs his ignorance had perpetuated. The emotional peak crashed like a wave, tears welling in Maya's eyes from relief and disbelief, while Alexander grappled with the profound discomfort of self-reckoning. This confrontation wasn't just about one night. It was a battle against ingrained prejudice, where vulnerability triumphed over fear. The darkness that had concealed her now illuminated a path forward, the most dramatic turn neither could have anticipated. As dawn crept through the skyscraper's windows, casting golden hues over the lounge, the encounter transformed into opportunity. Alexander, moved by Maya's resilience, arranged for her to receive a full scholarship through his company's foundation, along with a promotion to an entry-level administrative role where her studies could flourish openly. Over the following months, Maya thrived, her son witnessing a mother unbound by shadows, her business dreams taking root in fertile ground. Alexander, in turn, initiated diversity reforms in his empire, mandatory bias training, equitable hiring, practices, sparking ripples that challenged the status quo. Years later, Maya stood at the helm of her own successful enterprise, a testament to perseverance amid adversity. Alexander, reflecting on that night, found redemption in his evolved perspective, his wealth now a tool for equity rather than division. In a world rife with unseen barriers, one act of empathy can dismantle centuries of injustice. What if we all paused to see the light in the darkness? Could that surprise be the change we all need?